Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. And again, welcome to the Monday Motivation Podcast with Keagan Jewell. We're about to get this week's episode started. We've got a great interview coming up. But before we get into that, just to remind everybody, subscribe to the podcast, like the podcast, follow the podcast, whichever one you're listening on, whichever one of those options you can. Please give us a subscribe, rate us, review us. We want to hear from you guys on what you think of the podcast. And just by subscribing, you get notifications when we bring out each week's episode. That being said, let's get into this next episode of the Monday Motivation Podcast with Keagan Jewell. Keagan Jewell here with the Monday Motivation Podcast. We are on episode 5, and today I've got my man Dillon Smith here with me. Dillon is someone that I met at Nebraska Christian College, and we just, like I said, we got to go to college together. And right now, Dillon is the content manager for Carey Nieuwhof. Carey is someone that is majorly involved with Connexus Church, speaker around the nation, leadership expert, and has the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast, as well as just a blog that they come out with. And Dillon is someone that also gets to write on those blogs as well as getting into that speaking realm with that. So, like I said, we've got Dillon Smith here, and with that, we're going to get into this topic of don't sell yourself short, and also taking a chance. What I mean by this is sometimes I really think that as we go and we're presented with an opportunity in life, whether it's from God or God using people in our lives to bring us these different ideas or direction in life, we hear them and we go, that would be amazing, but there is no way in the world that that'll happen. And Dillon is someone that I'm going to let him explain it a little bit, but kind of had this own thing happen with him. So I'm going to throw it to Dillon. Dillon, again, briefly kind of explain how you started with Carey and also how your role has grown, shifted, changed. But yeah, how did you start with Carey Nieuwhof?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast, Keagan. So with Carey Nieuwhof, it like the crazy opportunities that have come in my life didn't start there, but that is by far the most notable and definitely the one that I did go, that could never happen ever. Yeah. I never thought that. So what happened is Carey Nieuwhof came to Nebraska Christian College, where Keagan and I were going to school, and we did a coaching session with him, where basically like 4 or 5 students get to sit across the table from Carey for an hour and just ask him questions. Awesome opportunity.
Oh, I loved those. Those were so good.
Those were game changing.
For sure.
Just being able to sit across from a major church leader and ask him questions.
Most definitely.
So Carey came to the podcast, He came to our college. And I asked him this question. I said, so say that I want to be a senior leader in 10 years. What are the practical steps I need to be living out today to best set me up to do that in the future?
Dang, that's a good question.
Yeah. So Carey walked out of that meeting, walked into the next meeting that he had, and told my then mentor, Corey Demmel, awesome guy, he's now a pastor in Florida, he said, I just got asked one of the best questions I've been asked in 10 years, and it was by an 18-year-old kid. And it was in reference to that question. Now, the funny part is that question wasn't my own. It was actually Corey's question. So Corey was hearing that around. It was just a cool situation.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny.
It is.
So a year passes by, and I never talked to Carey again. You know, he came and talked about the 10 church trends that he saw coming to pass in the future church.
Yeah,
which is
I remember
super
that
good talk, like game changing.
That.
So year goes by. I have a mentor. My residency plan was to go to Florida and work for Corey at Cape Christian Church. And I had a mentor here in Omaha named Myron Pierce who he challenged me. He said, make sure you're going to Florida for God and not just because you want to. Because I definitely wanted to go to Florida, but I hadn't necessarily felt that push from God yet. And I mean, it was early on in the residency search too.
That's really good though. That's a great reminder.
So it was a good question. And what Myron said is he said, you're going to pray about it for the next month. And at least an hour a day to 2 hours a day, you're going to spend alone with God. And So I did that challenge. And through that month, God pointed out some voices in my past and that question that I had asked Carey, and God actually pointed out and said, hey, I need you to go to work for Carey Nieuwhof. And I actually have the journal page where I wrote, this is crazy, but I think I'm supposed to go work for Carey Nieuwhof. God, is that right? And it was nuts. And I'm like, there's no way that could ever happen. But God had made a habit of doing that in my life up until then. So yeah. I figure I'm not going to shut God down now. So a month later, after I have that journal entry, I think it was like January 13th of 2018, Frank Beeler, who used to work at Elevation Church and just happens to be Carey Nieuwhof's best friend, comes and speaks at our college. Neither myself or any of the college faculty know that they're best friends. We just know that in some way they know each other. So when he comes, me and a guy named Andy Dykhouse, who was the head of leadership development at Nebraska Christian College, we pulled him aside and said, hey, I think we're hearing this, and it's a little crazy. Actually, it's a lot crazy. So we talked to Frank about it for a couple hours, and Frank said, I'll shoot him a text and just see what happens. And that's more than I could have ever asked for in and of itself. And coincidentally at the time, I later learned that text that Frank sent to Carey was, hey, I think I just found your new executive assistant. Because Carey's assistant of 10 years, her name's Sarah Piercy. She's amazing. She was going on maternity leave for a year because they're in Canada. That's how long you get for maternity leave in Canada. It's crazy.
Canada, man. Canada.
Those Canadians. They're awesome. I love working for a Canadian, so that's good. So she was going for a year, and God just happened to put that voice in my head that said, you need to go work for Carey Nieuwhof.
Man.
I'd only talked to him once. And so fast forward up, I'm working for him, hardest but best job I've had in my life. The first year of it was being his executive assistant. Yeah. And then when Sarah came back, Carey said, I think I want you to go into the content manager role. So now I'm writing a lot of our social media content, a lot of our marketing, helping run our course launches, help kind of decide how we're going to help the church in the future and leaders in the future. And man, it's been an amazing ride, but definitely one where I said, there's no way this could ever happen.
Oh yeah, no, and that's something I know when I saw you take this role. One, I was floored. Like I said, I was telling people I was serving under at the church, that I was like, that know who Carey is and know the impact Carey has on churches. I was like, got someone I went to school with that is working for this man, and they were shocked as well. But it reminds me of the last interview I had with Joey, that just, again, thinking with your lid off, taking those chances. And this is something I've even learned, that things are going to seem crazy at times, but you just got to go for it. And when you look back, that crazy turns into, that's a crazy amount of faith. And there is just the timing of everything within this. And just like you said, just going to someone that says, hey, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I want to ask you, Dillon, the question here is, you had this moment where you were challenged to hear from the Lord. And for you, it was God speaking to you in that prayer time, that personal time with him that way. And maybe for some people listening, they're going, I kind of feel that in my own life, but maybe it's also God using someone in their life, in the workplace, or just someone close to them saying, hey, I think there's this opportunity you need to go for, you pursue. What would you say to someone that may be kind of in your shoes of, I feel like I'm supposed to do this, I feel like I'm supposed to go this direction, but at the same time, I really don't think that there's even a possibility of it happening, of it going through. I don't want to go and have people reject me right there.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I remember you initially telling me this story, and even you said a little bit, you could have easily gone to him and hey, I'm supposed to work for Carey, and him would have been like, yeah, you're insane. there's no reason, like no way, and just not had it, but you took that chance.
In a way, he did say that too.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a little bit of time where he's like, you don't just ask like to work for Carey Nieuwhof.
Exactly. But you did.
But
and
yeah,
you went for it. And so I want to ask you, what would you say to someone that's in your shoes?
Yeah. So one, the journey to working for Carey Nieuwhof was not an overnight success. I think like there were a ton of little opportunities that I'd taken before getting to that place, which was amazing. And like I've been so grateful for the life that I've been given. Obviously, I've seen my share of tragedies and I've seen my share of pain. But what I've seen is that God can take that tragedy and turn it into something so much better and a passion so much deeper. Anyone who's facing a situation where they're like, this is an opportunity and I want to take it, I would say, one, you got to go for the things that are above your head or you'll never get higher than where you're at right now.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
So if you never go and look for the things that are bigger than what you already have, you're never going to go beyond where you're at. So you got to go for it. But I think the how is where the success that I've seen comes in, and it's not in just working for that big thing. It's taking care of the small things you're living in right now. Say that you want to go and start this big big blog online, or become a published author or whatever. You got to start with the small opportunities you've been given right now. That's it's parable of the talents if you studied it, but those who take care of a little will be given much. So if you're looking at these big opportunities or a potential job offering, are you stewarding the job you have now really well? Are you, is your life in order? Are your finances in order? Is your spiritual life in order? Like, okay, are you at least working on those disciplines to be ready for when you get that other job? And that's probably my big recommendation for that would be is become who you need to be for that job in your current job. So before you take that big leap, become somebody who could be in that role and do it. That's probably my biggest motivation.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
I really like that. Sounds like you're saying, stewardship is that word that I'm hearing there. It's like you said, steward your life well, prepare well. And let me tell you guys something. Dillon is someone that, yes, I was shocked, just like many others may have been, that someone I went to college with is working for someone like Carey Nieuwhof. But at the same time, Dillon was someone that it didn't surprise me in the sense of, wow, someone like Dillon is working for him, because Dillon was someone that would, like you talked about those coaching sessions, those coaching meetings, any of them I was in with him, he brought great questions. Dillon was always asking his mentors great questions and even preparing for those coaching sessions with his mentors. And so for me, even just as Dillon's talking about the stewardship and start the small things, as you do that, others will see it. Like I said, and that's really, I think what really, from talking to Dillon and stuff, that for him really benefited him the most, like he said, start the small things, steward those well. Because like I said, it didn't surprise me in that sense, because Dillon always was first to go for those coaching sessions, first to bring the great questions. And so that's great. I love what you said. You've got to go for the things above your head in order to get higher than you are now.
So true.
That is, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many leaders out there that would say, just go for the opportunities like crazy. I mean, you have almost nothing to lose. I mean, fear of rejection is a real thing. Don't hear that. But I would say, like, it's worth the risk. It's worth the jump. You got to go for it. If you have the opportunity, take it.
That's great.
And I mean, a big indicator of whether it's going to go well or not when you do make that jump is how well you're stewarding the things in your life right now. So like that's the two like heads of this coin that I think you gotta steward well, watch out for, and that's how you move up. And so that would be my encouragement to anyone facing the question and the decision right now. Another big part of it was the person that stepped into the role as Carey Nieuwhof's executive assistant wasn't just Dillon Smith. I took in an army of mentors, pastors, leaders on my shoulders, like helping me out, voices speaking into my head, like just people that wanted to see me succeed that I'd been asking good questions of for years. And Keagan mentioned that, the mentors and stuff. So that's like if I went into that job on my own strength, I would have been fired. I never would have made it. But since I wasn't working off my own strength, I was working off the strength of other leaders, I was able to make it. And I pushed through, and God was able to bring me through that with the help of the other people in his family. So
that's really good. People in your corner is big.
Yes.
People in your corner is big.
Massive.
Next question I've got, Dylan, is this. It would have been easy for you to, hear this from the Lord going, you're supposed to work for Carey Nieuwhof, and hear that and go, okay, God, that's funny, because I'm essentially sell yourself short in that spot of being like, there's no way, I'm not the right person for that. There's someone more qualified. There's someone with the better knowledge. Exactly. There's so many different factors you could have been going and said, I'm not the right person for that. There's people better than me at that. I think of even just examples from the Bible of, you've got Moses when God was like, you're going to set the people free. And Moses goes, God, I'm not the person. I stutter. I've done this. I've done that. You've got all these people that try. And so you've got someone sitting there going, okay, Dylan, I've heard from the Lord. I've had this opportunity brought to me, but I really don't feel like I'm the right person for it. I feel like I'm not qualified enough. I don't have the right knowledge for it. Whatever it is, they're selling themselves short and really disqualifying themselves before even taking that chance. What advice would you give them when it comes down to not selling yourself short and going, pushing past those? There probably is someone that's better and more qualified.
Yeah.
But why not me? What advice would you give someone for that?
That's a great question. So stepping into the role of executive assistant, that's not what I'd gone to college for. That was not what I was gifted at. Like, zero part of me is built to be an executive assistant. I screw up flights when I book them. I don't run a Google Calendar very well. And
let me tell you guys, this is true. When you started this, and I was meeting with Dylan on this, he told me the hardest part was having to schedule flights.
It was the worst.
Having the calendars.
Oh my gosh.
Being in charge of a book release and having to make sure all of that went well.
That was fun. That was fun. I was not qualified at all.
He knows what he's speaking on.
Yeah. One thing that I'm just writing a blog post on this right now, actually, and it essentially to step into a new role that's high level like mine. The thing that got me through it was not my competency. Carey knew when he hired me that I wasn't competent for this role. But what he hired me for was my character, and he hired me for essentially it's a blend of humility. Yep. It's a blend of living for something bigger than yourself, and it's integrity. It's not cutting corners. It's not compromising. And it ultimately this internal drive to live out my word. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So how that worked. One, Carey knew that he could always trust me. So even though that I failed things over and over and over, which I did for the first. Actually, I'm still failing things over and over and over. So it never ends. The lack of competency, like growth should never stop. And essentially you grow by feeling the pain of your failures most of the time. So with those opportunities where you think you're not the qualified one, you probably aren't, but that's okay. Because you can grow, you can learn, you can develop and become the person needed for that position. There's a steep learning curve on a lot of jobs. It's worth it because you come out of the other side of that learning curve and you are 10 times the leader you were going in. So that first summer, Keagan, we probably talked about this. That first summer I worked for Carey, first 3 months, I was on the clock 30 or 35 or 40 hours a week, but it was probably consuming 70 or 80 hours because like when I was learning all of that stuff, my brain was just being sucked into the learning, the growing, the developing, and it was so good. But I'd have to take breaks, and I'd have to like go and just walk around the apartment or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, so it, like your competency does not have to be there right at the beginning. You just got to step in, do it, make sure your character and your integrity can handle it, and you can grow into it.
Mhm.
So your competence is not the holdback there, and I wouldn't be worried about that. So yeah, that's
I can definitely tell you work for Carey with that character, not competency. I've been reading his book, Didn't See It Coming, and
so good.
it is so good. And that's literally one of the sections is all about. Carey says, competency may get you in the room sometimes, but it's character that's going to keep you there.
Yep.
Even talks about character a lot of times too is what gets you in the room. And so yeah, I really like that. Being willing, guys, to learn. Like I said, watching Dillon that first summer and getting to hear from him and talk to him about it. It's an exciting opportunity, but man, the dude was learning left and right, and
it's painful.
Exactly. But like you said, you grow by feeling the pain of your failures. And Dillon was someone that, and I've still seen this in him. He goes and he's willing to learn through those failures. He's learned that, if he fails on things, you know what? It's going to have to own up to it. Like you said, being that character going to Carey saying, hey, I messed up on this or screwed up on this, or having him come to you and saying what happened here and owning up to it. But then being willing to take feedback and learn from those above you. I really like that. And so is there anything else, Dillon, that you would say to people maybe that, as we're finishing up, that maybe they're going, and I guess the question I have is, what action steps maybe you've got people going that are sitting there and they've had something spoken over them, or maybe even they are looking on what's next and nothing's been spoken over them. What steps would you have for those that are in that spot of ready to take a shot and really want to go, like, you taking this going, okay, I'm not going to sell myself short. I believe in myself. I'm going to go for that chance. What advice would you have for them as we finish up here that you would give them?
Yeah. I would, whatever area you're looking to get into, or whatever place, field you want to learn more about and grow in and then run that role, start asking questions of people already in it. Start learning from the people that have already done it. Ask them about their journey. Hey, how'd you get into youth ministry? Hey, how'd you get into the business space? How'd you start an online course business? Like all that kind of stuff. Start asking people those questions, because then you know what your potential break needs to look like. And you have a couple frameworks that you can begin playing into and looking for. So then after you talk to them, make sure that your camp is in order, get your finances in order, get your mentors in order, get people that can call you out when you're screwing up, and go and grow into that position. And then the third thing is always be looking for the opportunities to step into that. For me, the reason I went to Frank, the best friend of Carey's, was because I saw that opportunity. I sent Andy the email saying, hey, Frank's coming on Monday. I think we need to talk to him about Carey. So you got to look for those opportunities if you're going to get them. Now, theologically, I can't say that the opportunities will never come if you don't do that, because I think God does what he wants when he wants to whoever he wants. But I think we can delay that, and I think we can bring ourselves off of God's plan sometimes, or we can delay it. So we got to be looking for those opportunities, and we got to be able to take them when they come. So I've made a habit of, like, I'll meet with senior leaders, and I'll meet with people that are doing the job that I eventually want to do. And a lot of times at the end of the meeting, where I brought 7 or 8 questions just to ask them, my final question is, how could I have handled myself better in this meeting? How could I have done this better? So like an example of this would be, I could ask Keagan at the end of this podcast, hey, what could I have done better in this podcast? How could I have grown in that? And by asking those questions and being so open to feedback, you get better, you get stronger at your field, and you become the person that doesn't hit those pitfalls that you used to hit, those trap doors that you step into. Like, you just begin to avoid them because you know what they look like and you know what you naturally do wrong. So I've definitely had to learn a few lessons that way, and I would say you probably need to also while you're working towards that business. So I think that's the tips. I mean, you're never going to be good enough. I don't think any of us are ever good enough. Like, we all still screw up. I still don't hit my devotions every morning. That month of spending an hour with Jesus, it was only a month. I've been trying to get back to it, but I just haven't. So, like, don't let your own setbacks, your own failures, your own incapabilities stop you from doing what God wants to do.
Ooh, that's good.
Because His power is the thing that can drive you, not your own.
Yeah, I like that. Man, that's good stuff. Again, prepare your life now for the opportunities that are coming your way, or the job that you're wanting. Be looking for those opportunities and be willing to fail, be willing to learn, everyone, and grow through that. Dillon, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad this worked out. Glad we were able to get this in. Excited for what other conversation, podcast or not, that we're going to be having.
Agreed.
Thanks for hopping on and sharing that. And again, everyone, just go out and be ready for that. Look for those opportunities. Prepare yourself now and get people in your corner and be willing to learn through those failures. It's again the Monday Motivation Podcast with Keagan Jewell. Can't wait for next week. I love you all. Have a great Monday and a great, great week. And I just hope this inspired even just one person out there to go take that chance and remember that you may not be good enough. There's going to be always going to be someone better and more competent than us, but it's your character that's going to give you those opportunities.
Yeah.
Love you all. Can't wait for next week. Have a great week and a great Monday.